Hello and welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. I'm your host, Gabe Peterson, and this is the place investors go to gain actionable advice, learn about current market trends, and hear war stories from other professional investors out there in the field today. Before we get started, I have two quick housekeeping items for you. First, if you like this episode, we would very much appreciate a like, subscribe, and share. It is the best way to support the show and keep it running far into the future. Second, if you're a new investor looking to get started in real estate or an experienced investor looking to take your investing to the next level, I've created an ebook just for you that will cover how to find deals that are actually deals, how to finance those deals with little to no money down, and how to exit those deals for maximum value. On top of that, I throw in an insane amount of free bonuses that you'll have access to once you buy the ebook. All I charge is our admin costs to keep this show running. So if you're serious about real estate investing and want to create both active and passive income as an investor, head on over to the website at therealestateinvestingclub.com and click on the button that says get the ebook in the upper right-hand corner to grab yourself a copy. With that said, let's dive right in. Today we have a very special guest with us, ready to drop some investor knowledge on you. So buckle up, grab your pen and paper, and enjoy the ride. All right. And we are back with another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. Today we have Van Sturgeon with us. Van is a real estate investor, home builder, renovator, general contractor, and a coach with over 30 years of experience in the real estate industry. Jack of all trades here with Van. So Van, I'm super excited to have you. Thanks for hopping on the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I've been a long time admirer of yours, and you've got a lot of great guests in the past. So hopefully I can help everybody out who's listening to your podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I told you before, you are an expert in planning and executing renovations. I am a definite neophyte. I am not there at all. So I'm really excited to learn from you. But before we jump into that, I told you before we jumped on the show, we always start with stories. I want to hear your story. How did you get started in real estate? You know, whenever you got started back 30 years ago?
Well, I'll go a little bit further than back. My parents, I grew up in Chicago, and my parents were immigrants who wanted to save up some money to be able to buy their first home, their dream home. So we lived in a one-bedroom apartment, four of us, including my younger brother. And my parents were able to find out that the apartment building that we were staying at, that we were renting from, had gone up for sale. And so they, instead of buying their dream home, they decided to become landlords, and they put their down payment and purchased this small little apartment building. And that happened in the late 70s. But just around that time when the things started to change for the worse in terms of the economy, it was a period of time where interest rates skyrocketed 18, 20 some odd percent.
Oh,
there was a rent hostage situation. It was just a miserable time in our country. And so this beautiful apartment building that was fully occupied, all of a sudden it had 40 to 60% vacancy rate. Oof. And so as a family, we had that this is our only possession. It was important for us to hold on to it.
Right.
So we had to do everything possible in making, from cleaning the apartments to painting, plastering, electrical work. I don't know how many thousands of toilets I've cleaned in my lifetime. So all this of early on in my life is what I grew up with. And so we were able to get through that period of time. And eventually I went off to university, graduated, could have gone off to law school, but I decided it wasn't for me. And I wanted to get into, this renovation, general contracting, because that was my background. That's what I knew and I enjoyed, I loved. And so in Chicago, that's where I got started. In the early 90s, I had a general contracting business that I started going around and on the hustle, trying to build my business, try to make a buck. And started to grow over a period of time. And I kept running into the same people, these real estate investors who are buying these junky properties and then, cleaning them up, doing what I had to do. And then they would sell them for profits. And, also guys that were buying properties and putting them as in a rental portfolio. And that's when I got a glimpse and got this, hey, maybe this is something I should give a try. And So that's how I got started. So on one hand, I was building, developing this general contracting business. And then at the same time, I was a real estate investor. And so those two kind of went hand in hand as I progressed. And then things I just fell into. I never planned this out over 30 years ago. Things like, having my own property management company, partnering up with some great people. I've got some great employees that I've been able to gather across over the years, and got to a point where I'm kind of semi-retired right now, and I'm just really I don't do the day-to-day operations on my businesses or my portfolio. I've got great people to do that for me. I'm kind of semi-retired, and I'm really devoted my time in helping new real estate investors who have really there's a lot of fear out there, in particular on the planning and the management side of home renovations. And that's where I'm really an expert, because I've literally done thousands of renovations, from apartments all the way up to apartment buildings, office buildings, things of that sort. So that's really where my calling is. I really love right now dealing with the new real estate investors who really want to learn that process about planning and managing renovations.
Yep. No, and that is definitely one of the hardest parts, in my opinion, of investing to get right. I mean, the numbers, finding the properties, for me, that was the easy part. But doing the rehab, that is always, I don't know why, but for me, it was the hard one. But I loved your story, because you learned out of necessity. Like your parents, they went through a hard time in the 70s. And they lost occupancy, so they got all their four boys, and you worked on the properties to keep them afloat. And out of that experience grew your love for real estate, your love for renovations, your love for general contracting. So I really like to hear stories where people, their backs got pushed up against the wall and they kind of rose to the occasion, and from that they grew their business. So congratulations for that part. That's awesome. I'm sure your parents are super proud.
No, thank you. But also at the same time, it wasn't that period of time in my life. Granted, it was difficult, but we got through it. But then eventually, I went on my own, and as I was growing my general contracting business, I was doing more and more of this house flipping, and I was I had a mindset of being a micromanager, because I was the only one that could do it. I was perfect at it. It got to a point where I overextended myself. And I actually had to go out there and got to the point where I had to go out there and get help. I actually got a real estate coach that was very successful in Chicago. That was a real estate investor that had a beautiful portfolio of properties. He had it all figured out. And I got to a point where I was scaling too fast, and I didn't know how to do it. I was losing control. And so I went to him, and I paid a pretty penny back then, but it was an individual that put me on the right path, where he showed me the systems. He showed me what the processes were, how to really structure a business and really take it to the next level. If it wasn't for that investment, some 30 some odd years ago, I wouldn't be where I am today. So there's truly a benefit in it's like this. I always tell people about coaching or finding a mentor. It's like trying to figure out how to drive a car or play a guitar. Like, you can grab that thing and you can sit there bumbling around with it, and maybe after a couple of years you might figure out how to play a song on it. But wouldn't it be so much easier just to hire a guitar teacher or a driving instructor and having them sit right next to you and showing you what it is that you need to do in order to be successful? It's a lot. You got to pay money, but it's a lot quicker process. And in our business in real estate, if you make one wrong move, it can devastate you. And I've seen it happen so many times. I'm sure you have too, where you have these fledgling new real estate investors, and they watch these YouTube videos, TV shows where you could get a renovation in 30 minutes. You can flip a house in 1 hour. And they get into it because, real estate's where it's at. That's why 90% of the billionaires in the world are in real estate. And they get into buying their first property, and they don't have a clue what they're doing, and it financially devastates them. And they're in many cases aren't able to recover. So it's a game. It's not a game. It can be very brutal. And so I strongly encourage people to get out there, and real estate's great, but you need to have some structure, somebody to be able to show you the way.
Yep. And I've repeated that same, or many guests on this show have repeated that same sentiment. If you want to really get into real estate and really be successful at it, you got to learn from someone. You have to actually be side by side with someone learning, because, there's only so much you can learn from books. You got to be in the field, and you got to learn from somebody else, because being able to mirror their success is what will kind of shorten the time frame for yourself. Earlier, though, I want to go back to renovations because you are a wealth of knowledge, and there's a lot that we can pull from you. You mentioned that a lot of people have fear of renovations, which is rightfully so, because that is, especially when you're talking about flips or burrs or even a rental that you buy. Renovations is where things can go wrong. If you don't bid it right, if you don't scope it right, you can definitely lose your shirt in the renovations, especially when you get to bigger properties like multifamily. So kind of take us, from your perspective. Let's say you just found a triplex or a quad, and it's in bad shape. What are the first things you do when you are buying an investment property?
Well, when I'm buying an investment property, obviously, first of all, the source is incredibly important. I find many new real estate investors rush in and they jump on MLS and think that they're going to find a deal on that thing. And I know there's millions of other people that are sitting there poking through the same listings that you are. There are no deals on MLS. It's very rare, and so and I'm sure you have a network of people that you have in the areas that you're looking to invest, that you've already have relationships with, that are feeding you opportunities every single day. I open up my inbox and I can see those opportunities in the areas that I'm concentrated in. I'm in 4 areas right now. I'm in Michigan, I'm in Ohio, I'm in New Brunswick, up in Canada, and Florida. And specifically, there's submarkets there that I'm very active in. And I've got a power team in each one of these places where I got relationships with real estate agents and brokers and stuff like that to find the deals. But ultimately, when you find the deal, one of the things that I struggle with understanding if you're a new real estate investor is how can you put a dollar value on the ugly duckling that and I know is the deal there, but you got to be able to put a number on the renovation cost, the rehab cost on that. And if you don't have that skill set, it's a pretty important skill set to be able to get an evaluation on that quad or that duplex or that single family home that you're looking to purchase. You got to have that. And right now, how the real estate market is so quick right now, so robust, that we don't have an opportunity to spend a couple of days to call up my contractor friend or to call up a property inspector and pay $300 to $500 for that inspection. I got an opportunity. If I find an off-market deal, I've got literally an hour or two to either put in an offer or it's gone. It was going to go to somebody else. And you're nodding your head because you know what I'm talking about. So you got to be in that position where you walk into that property and you got to be able to assess it and say, okay, it's going to cost me, $60,000. It's going to take me 2 months. I got to factor that into my equation and to determine whether this is a good deal or not. And then once you've been able to do that, then the next step is, okay, so how do you plan and manage this renovation to be able to get to to the promised land? And the first thing that I find many new real estate investors that get started is that they don't have a goal. They don't have an actual goal that they need to write out. They need to have a goal associated with this particular property. That can vary depending on whether this is going to be a rental property that you're going to hold on to or whether it's a flip. And then once you've established that goal and you got it written down, you got to get out there in the marketplace and validate it. And I find a lot of people aren't willing to do the heavy lifting and go in there, dig around to find out why. Is it possible for this goal that you've written down to be able to get there? Like, what do you need in order to get there? So if you got a property that you're looking to rent out for $1,200 a month, you need to go out there and look at properties that are similar in the area and find out what they have done to that property. What are the amenities? And really validate that goal based on that information. And then once you've moved out, then from there, once you got that goal, you got to move on to budgeting. Budgets are really important because not so much the actual cost, which is important, but where are you going to find the money to be able to do this flip or to do this rental? And oftentimes people struggle figuring out where to find that money. And that's one of the things that, I help people out in trying to determine where to go. Sometimes it's cash is obviously great to have, but a lot of people don't have it. So how do you structure it? Well, maybe lines of credit, maybe hard money lenders. There are hard money lenders all over the place that you can reach out to. If they're, they look at the numbers and you got some collateral, you can borrow off of that. There's also your fellow real estate investors that are out there too. How many, if there's an opportunity, I got a couple of dollars to my name. If I see an opportunity where I can get involved in a project where I can make X amount of dollars in it over a course of 3, 6 months, whatever the case is, I'm willing to seriously consider it. We're always looking to make more money, right? That's the name of the game in this whole real estate thing. So there's a lot of options out there for sources of money that folks unfortunately don't have. They can't figure out. And that's one of the things that I'm a big proponent on, looking after figuring out where the money sources are. And then ultimately you transition into like creating a needs and wants list to the property. Once you've been able to figure out the goal, you figure out where you're going to find the money for that. Next thing is you got to go and really assess the property. And you create literally grab a sheet of paper and you put one column needs and another column wants. And needs are things you have to get done to the property. If there's a hole in the roof and rainwater's coming in, you got to replace that. That's a need.
Plumbing, electrical, infrastructure, anything like that.
Yeah. And then when you got situations like oftentimes I find new real estate investors run into looking at their windows that are, these properties are 40, 60 years old, and they immediately assume that they got to replace the windows. And, that's a want. Unless the window's broken, sometimes you leave those windows alone because you got to, everything filters through that goal that you've established. Yep. So that list that you create, you got to separate these items from needs and wants. And the wants list are things that you can get to if you got money in the kitty, if you got money in the budget. But needs are things that you have to address in order to get you to your goal. And that's really the whole planning process right there. But then really the kicker that I find the most confusion and the lack of transparency is, Gabriel, is in how do you move from that process of getting to a point where you have something that you can price out like other people, like contractors or tradespeople can price out. And that's called the documents, called the scope of work. So my background as a general contractor, I've done work on commercial projects as well as residential. And on a commercial project, 99% of the time, there's a scope of work that's been created, either by an architect, an interior designer, engineers. And that piece of paper, that document then is sent out to all the tradespeople, all the electricians, all those, types of cats that look at the same set of documents and they price it out. On the residential side, I hardly ever see that the case. I just got a phone call a couple of days ago from a woman who was interested in renovating her property. And she had called a bunch of general contractors over to price out the job. And she was scratching her head, wondering why were these guys giving her prices all the way from $80,000 all the way up to $120,000, $130,000? And then I started to probe and ask her questions. Said, okay, what was the basis of them coming to your property? Did you provide some guidance? You give them a piece of paper? How did they compare apples to apples? And then she slowly realized that there was nothing there. And so it was just, wave of the hand. Oh yeah, I want to do this and I want to do that. Nothing tangible, nothing written. And so general contractors seize the opportunity. Sometimes they do, and to take advantage of it. Sometimes they don't. By saying, okay, yeah, well, it's going to cost $80,000. So some guy will say $120,000. And if you really look at the quotes, you might figure out that that guy for $120,000 actually offers a better bang for your buck than the guy who's at $80,000. So a scope of work is incredibly important. It really streamlines the process. It really clarifies everything. You know exactly what it is that you're looking to accomplish in your project, and it acts as a blueprint moving forward.
Yep. And that's that's the second time that you've kind of mentioned plans in the entire thing that you've been talking about here. Because I see a scope of work is basically your plan for renovations. But if you don't sit down with any investment that you do, if you don't sit down at the beginning and kind of think it through and create a plan for what you're doing, then it's not going to go as planned. If you don't have a plan, then it can literally go anywhere. At the very, very beginning, you said before you do any project, you have to have an exit plan. I love that you said that, because really people do need to focus on the end goal. Are you buying this as a flip? Are you buying it as a rental? What is the end goal? And then you have to have a plan for your renovations themselves, your scope of work. If you don't have a plan, a scope of work, and you don't give it to the contractor, they will create their own plan. And those plans are going to be widely divergent. Just like you said, it can be anything from just replacing a sink to replacing the tile and, whatever they see fit. So love it. Have a plan, especially when it comes to renovations. And that's the hard part, especially when you don't have a lot of experience in renovations and, fixing houses up. You don't necessarily know what to do. So if somebody doesn't have, say they're watching HGTV, they want to do a flip, they don't know how to do it. What is the just a quick step-by-step guide that you would give someone to coming up with their plan? Like what are the things they just kind of bullet point through in order to come up with their scope of work, their SOW? Before we continue on with today's guest, I want to tell you guys about a community I'm launching on School to help investors like yourself grow your own portfolio. In this community, you'll get access to all the docs I use, all the systems I've built, everything I've used to grow my own portfolio, as well as instructions and guidance on how to get out there and find great deals, how to finance those deals, and then how to manage them for great returns. Since we're just launching it, the price will be set at a measly $20 per month, and whatever price you join at is the price you'll have for life. We will be increasing the price as the group grows, so if you're at all interested in growing your portfolio along other investors, now is the time to join. I will put the link somewhere in the bio or on our podcast website at therealestateinvestingclub.com, so if you are interested, head on over there. With that said, let's get back to the podcast.
Well, the way a scope of work is structured is that you start with each room in that particular property, and whatever works that are needed in that property, you identify it. So
room by room.
So everything needs to be written down in that scope of work. So if the room's going to get painted, okay, great, it's going to get painted. But what's the color? What's the sheen? What quality of paint? Because there's such a wide variety. If you're looking to do something in a bathroom, you gotta write down the kind of toilet that you actually want to install, and because there's $100 toilets and there's $1,000 toilets, and if you let that,
just go to Costco and get your toilet. Costco is the best toilet,
which is fine, But you got to make those decisions, because ultimately, if you don't make them and you assume a certain level of quality that of a product, you're not going to get it. There's laminate floor, there's hardwood floor. Guess what? Hardwood floor is a lot more expensive than laminate floor. And so all these things you got to figure out. And once you create that scope of work, you go out there then you pull each of those rooms, the disciplines that each of those rooms is required. So if an electrician needs to put an electrical outlet in the kitchen, and then an electrician needs to put 4 recess lights in the living room, those line items you pull, and you create within the document, the electrical discipline, then the plumbing discipline, and then a painter discipline. Because ultimately what we want to do is, when we send this out to tender, when an electrician gets it, a plumber gets it, they've got a clear picture of the body of the work that's being done there. They got diagrams, they got pictures of the whole situation, what's happening, and they can price it out accordingly. And once you get these quotes for the plumber and the electrician and the painter, they're all you can compare them to apples, because everybody's basing their estimates off of one document. Perfect. And it's amazing. One of the difficulties that I find, new real estate investors, I can't find contractors, I can't find tradespeople to do work on mine, they're so busy. Let me tell you, if you produce a scope of work and you have it done professionally, like in terms of the content that's in it, and you send it out to these people, you're going to get a much higher response rate than you would if you just called them and said, I want to do this and do that over the telephone. If I'm a busy guy and I get a phone call like that, which I do every single day, I don't respond to them. I just blow them off because I'm a busy guy. Yep. But if I come across somebody who is, produces documents and a plan, then I'm going to be much more inclined to reply to that person and deal with that person, because professional people want to deal with professional people. They don't want to deal with schmucks. And ultimately, if you don't have something like that, you're just going to draw in the losers. You're going to draw in the bottom of the barrel. And then by the virtue of you having a scope of work, you get rid of those losers, because losers will look at that document and say, this guy, this person knows what they're doing. We want to deal with, they don't want to deal with people who know what they're doing. They want to deal with opportunities to be able to take advantage of you. And good business people, they just want to get in there, do their work, get their money, move on to the other project. They rely on turnover. They don't rely on sitting there for 6 months, 8 months on one particular project and milking that particular client. There's no money in that. Yep. The money's made in turnover. So professional people like me who've got very great, successful businesses understand and appreciate that. And those are the types of people you should you should be concentrating on doing business with.
Yep, I love it. So, real quick recap for someone who's just getting into their renovation and they're looking how to scope it out. You said go room by room, write down everything that you want to do in that room, and then take out each individual item by subcontractor. So if it's an electrician, take out all the electrical items. If it's a plumber, take out all the plumbing, and then get them scoped or get them bid out by those individual subcontractors. So room by room, then subcontractor by subcontractor. Obviously, you can get a GC to do this as well. But as long as you have that scope of work, room by room, it's something that they can work with. And as you said, you're going to have a much higher response rate because they have a plan. And that is exactly what everybody wants.
If you're dealing, Gabriel, even if you're dealing with a general contractor, it's always a good practice for you to create your own scope of work. And then when you tender it out to general contractors, you get a comparison of apples to apples. The only issue that I struggle with new real estate investors is that you need to do this on your own. You need to get this. You need to have developed a skill set, not in a matter just of dealing with your own renovation, but using that skill set, for the future and being able to figure out, hey, is this future property? Is it worthwhile for me to purchase or not? You need to have that skill set. And why should you hire a general contractor, which I am? And I'll tell you that if I were to price out a job of yours, a $50,000 job, and I gave you a quote for $50,000, my cost on it is going to be somewhere around $30,000 to $35,000. That's my cost. I need to make $15,000, $20,000 on that renovation for that 2-3 months, or it's not really worth it for me. I need a I can't make $2,000 a month. It doesn't make sense. Yep. So by virtue of you being able to step into the shoes of a general contractor, not only do you learn a skill set, but at the same time, you're saving 30 to 50% on your renovation. I think you need to do that. I think, folks, if you want to be a serious operator, a successful real estate investor, you need to learn that skill set.
30 to 50% is definitely worth it. I'll tell you right now, especially when you get bigger deals.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Van, we've already pushed through the 20-minute mark, so I got to jump us into the quick question round. You ready to rock?
I'm ready to go rock and roll. Go ahead.
All right. It always starts out with books because I'm a big bookie. So why don't you tell me 2 book recommendations, one for general life wisdom and then one for real estate?
One for general wisdom is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I think that's really a great book just for overall. It doesn't have to be about real estate. It can just in life in general. The other book I'm going to throw you for a loop, and this is a book that I read a long, long time ago. It's The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump. Like it was a phenomenal book in that there were certain nuggets that I pulled out of it that I still use to this day. Like it hasn't been all peaches and cream, and over the course of 30 years where, I've had some business ventures that, blew up. Yeah. And by virtue of reading his book, I've always retained certain things about how to go about that process of blowing it up like he did in the early 90s. So that's one book I recommend people reading.
Awesome. That's funny because, I've had, 150 something guests on the show, and you're the first person to recommend The Art of the Deal. And I've heard it's a good book, so I might have to pick it up and check it out. I mean, Donald Trump, he obviously has been a successful man, so I'm sure he has some good things to say.
He's a hell of a marketeer. And there's a lot of great stuff in that book that you can pull from there. I don't want to take up your time, but yeah, it's a great book to read. Definitely.
Perfect. All right, moving on. This one is for your younger self. So the Van who was, growing up with your 3 other brothers, you guys were living in that apartment complex with your parents, getting your hands dirty, fixing toilets. Go back to that Van, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
I really recommend people that individual to be able to find something in their life that they're really good at, that really happy, makes them happy, that makes them feel whatever they're doing is effortless. We're all blessed with a gift. My gift might be making a birthday, making cakes, and your gift might be singing us songs, and other people might be something else. And when you do something like that and you find what it is that you're really good at, it comes effortless, and it's not work. I was blessed in that I got into something that I enjoy every single moment that I talk about real estate. I don't know if you can tell I'm passionate about renovations and stuff like that, because I've gone through it because I'm really good at it. And I really enjoy engaging in something that I'm really good at. And I really recommend people to find that gift of theirs and really to use that. And it's amazing what you can accomplish with that gift. We're all blessed with something.
Yep, I love that. In fact, I read one time that there's only three things that make people happy, and that's competence, connection, and autonomy. And so if you want to be happier, just get good at something. And real estate's great because it's very numbers oriented, and so you can see definitive results. Like you can see the building being built, and you can see numbers, rent coming in. So I love that you said that. Get good at something, and that's kind of the route that you took. Going on to the next question. This one's about habits. So if you could point to one habit that you feel has contributed the most to your overall health, well-being, and success, what would that habit be?
Perseverance. It is, you need to have perseverance. Life is never meant to be easy. You got to go through a lot of junk and a lot of issues and a lot of problems. You have to have perseverance. And a lot of times that's really test the mettle of an individual, is being able to go through those difficult times and persevere. And I always envision, always see, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, envision victory, envision that goal, envision what it is that you want to accomplish, and just persevere through the stuff that you got to go through to get to the end of the, at the end of the day, to accomplish that goal. I followed that over the last 30 years, and the successes I've been able to find in life is because of the perseverance that I've had.
Absolutely. Murphy's Law, baby. If something will or can go wrong, it definitely will go wrong. So you got to persevere through the shitstorm because it is always going to be in front of you. Second to last question. So the United States, I don't know how many million, there are hundreds of thousands of miles. I don't know how many square miles are in the U.S., probably a lot. But there's a lot of places to invest. So if you could point to one place in the U.S. that you are most excited about putting your hard-earned dollars, where would that place be?
There are two places where I'm very actively involved in. It is in Detroit and in Cleveland. I think those
Detroit,
two
really.
I think those two markets are incredible in that these submarkets are growing. There's submarkets within these areas are growing, and a lot of folks look at the population growth, which is non-existent. It's actually decreasing in these two areas.
Mm-hmm.
But what they fail to realize is that the actual stock of housing that exists in those two areas is also decreasing in much larger rate than the actual population that is moving out of that. So essentially, you're having more and more demand being naturally created because of products that are disappearing from the marketplace.
That's really interesting because most people, you just named the two markets that nobody wants to put their money, Detroit and Cleveland. I almost bought a 25 unit multifamily out there, and I was like seconds from pulling the trigger, but I just didn't because of the statistics. I think Cleveland had a negative 2-3% net migration. And so it's interesting.
Yes, but also at the same time, though, you're actually having stock being removed. You have literally neighborhoods in Cleveland and Detroit are being leveled, and it's population, yes, is decreasing, but it's not decreasing at the same level that as these properties are being removed off of supply. And, so you have a very stable market. And I've been there for a number of years now, and I'm very happy. I'm a cash flow kind of guy.
Yeah.
I see. I want to get into opportunities where I can grab a piece of junky property and sprinkle some investment in terms of renovations and be able to pull value out of it, and then go do the BRRRR. I've been doing BRRRR strategies before there was a BRRRR.
Before it was BRRRR.
Before there was a BRRRR. And so opportunities like that exist now especially for that new real estate investor who wants to get into, that $30,000 to $50,000, $70,000 property, throw some renovation into it, and all of a sudden can raise a value. You might have to put a portfolio of properties together before you can go to a financial institution and refi it out. But the opportunities do exist over there. And I love the cash flow that it generates.
No, I love it. That's, that makes sense. I didn't actually know that they were leveling houses. Is that just because they're too old, too dilapidated, and nobody's using them, or why are they?
Absolutely. You've got areas in Detroit where they're actually greenfields, where you might have a splattering of homes that people live in, but the rest of them that have been abandoned over the years have been leveled. And so, yes, the population is decreasing in those areas, but at the same time, it hasn't decreased at the same level or rate as these houses are being condemned and being leveled. So there are opportunities. Also, there's some really interesting investments that have been made in Cleveland and in Detroit. Quicken Loans and the Quicken people there are making massive infusions of capital investments in the downtown core. It's attracting people. Cleveland is also going through a renaissance as well. So these are the type of opportunities. When people are running away, I like to look at it. I like to poke through, and I like to see there's opportunities definitely, even outside of these areas as well.
Yep. And I love that. That kind of goes to show you in any market, there is opportunity. You don't necessarily need to follow the double digit growth indicators like in Idaho, Florida. The growth is huge, and obviously you're going to make money there, but you can always make money even in metros that, on the surface you'd think you'd start to lose money, like Detroit and Cleveland, because they have a negative net migration. But there's still opportunity there, just like Van has said. So it's cool you said that. I'm glad you chose those two cities. This is the quick question round known, so we are totally not going quick, but that's fine. It's our podcast. We can do what we want. We're on the last question though. This one is for everybody listening and watching. You've given us good advice on how to renovate houses. I'm sure people want to reach out. What is the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Head over to, I've got a personal website that I've created, vansturgeon.com. I've got a number of articles that I've written over the years that are on my website that talk about real estate investing, in particular renovations. I've got a number of tools. I've been a number of podcasts that people can listen to that are posted. I'm going to post this one when we get through with it on my website. And also I've got two things that I can offer your listeners. One is I've got to create a renovation calculator that you can download that will allow you to be able to walk through any property, tick off the things that you want to accomplish within that property, and it'll spit out a budgetary number of what the rehab costs would be. And another thing is also at a lot more elaborate level, I've got a free training video that I'm offering to folks to be able to walk them through the process of planning and managing renovation. And it really goes into the minutia of what it is that you need to do. I want to help people out. That's the reason why I'm here talking to you. I generally want to make sure and hope that the information that I've locked into this pumpkin head of mine that over 30 years, I want to be able to share that with folks that want to really make a difference in their lives and become successful real estate investors.
Perfect. So that is vansturgeon.com. For everybody listening and watching, if you want to get in contact with Van, I will put that URL in the show notes. So all you got to do is just click that little more in the description. It'll pop down the full description. In there, you can find Van's link. Click through, say hi, take advantage of those benefits that he just given out for you guys. So awesome. That concludes it. Van, thank you very much for hopping on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great talking with you.
Absolutely. And for everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You were the reason that we do this, so we appreciate having you here. As always, if you have any questions whatsoever, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. Other than that, hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode as much as I enjoyed putting it on, and we're able to pull some actionable advice that you can apply in your own investing today in the field. Before you go, we have a gift for you. If you're a new investor looking to get started or an established investor looking to take your investing to the next level, I've created an ebook just for you, available on our website. This ebook will cover how I was able to create both active and passive income in real estate with very little money to start with. In it, I will address the 3 most often cited obstacles new and veteran investors run into by showing you how to find deals that are actually deals, how to finance a deal with little to no money down, and how to exit those deals for maximum value. And if you get the ebook today, I am throwing in a bundle of bonuses, 7 of them to be exact. The first one will be the off-market lead generation blueprint, which will take you through the exact systems and processes we use to generate off-market leads like clockwork, which is the most important skill when it comes to creating wealth in real estate. The second bonus is the A to Z REI systems and vendors guide, which will allow you to peek under the hood of our business and see the exact tools, systems, and even the vendors we use to see the success that we do. And the third bonus is the top 100 best performing keywords pack, which will give you the exact keywords we use to target motivated sellers online using PPC ads. The fourth bonus is our contracts bundle for wholesaling and renting real estate, which will give you access to all the contracts we use in the field to execute all different types of transactions. After that is the investor's quick analysis calculator and offer tool, which will allow you to quickly calculate whether a deal is an actual deal and will allow you to create an offer automagically from those calculations. This is a lot of bonuses that I said. I'm just going to keep going down the list. Number 6 is the investor's daily success tracker, which is a tracker you can use to ensure you are taking the right actions day in and day out to reach your financial goals in real estate. And the last bonus is the wholesaler's template for quick assignment cash, which will give you the templates we use to present our wholesale deals professionally and efficiently to our buyers. Whew, that is a bundle. So it's a mouthful. You get all of those bonuses for free when you download the ebook. All we charge is the admin cost to run the show. So if you're interested in the ebook and the bonus bundle, head on over to the website at therealestateinvestingclub.com. Click on Get the Ebook Bundle at the top of the page to take advantage of that deal. And with that said, I hope you have a fantastic day and even better week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
All right, before I officially sign off, I have a quick announcement to make. If you're interested in becoming a passive investor in one of my deals, my own company, Kaizen Properties, is looking for capital partners for our upcoming projects. We invest in what are known as recession-resistant assets, mainly self-storage facilities, mobile home and RV parks, and industrial properties. If you're interested in investing and would like to learn a little bit more about my company, our investing criteria, and some of the previous projects we've done, go to the Real Estate Investing Club podcast at therealestateinvestingclub.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Click on the Invest With Us button. That'll pop up the investor form. Fill that out, and we will reach back out to you as soon as we can. Or if you prefer a little bit more of a personal touch, you can reach out to me at gabe@therealestateinvestingclub.com. So really, that is it. Again, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys during this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.